Hey, comic book fans! Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. And fans, you're back with me, Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to bring you the countdown, episode number 89. That's right, fans. This is the first one of the year. But before we get started with this countdown, just wanted to let you know today is the last day for voting of Comic of the Year. So if you guys haven't voted on that, I will leave a link in the descriptions box below, and you guys can go vote on that. Today is the last day to vote for that, and then tomorrow I will have the announcement of what you guys voted, what was Comic of the Year. So today is the first one of the year, and this will be the first book that will be thrown into the pool for Comic of the Year for going for 2015. So it's a long road ahead, but here we go. Now, this is the smallest countdown of the year. I am sure of it. I only have 4 books to talk about, so this will be a quick countdown, guys. And let's just jump right into it, shall we? Wasn't many books that came out. If you were a die-hard comic fan and you wanted to collect every single book this week, I think there was a total of 10 books. And I didn't get all 10 books, or I didn't read all 10 books, but I did read 4 books. And number 4 this week on this week's countdown was, yeah, you surprised? Are you surprised by this one? This is Earth 2, World's End, issue number 13. I'm just not a fan of this, guys. This is really over my head. A lot of the stuff that goes on here. We got all the different avatars that are defending Earth from Apocalypse and the Furies, and I'm just like, why? Why do we all need this? It's kind of it's just weird, everything that's going on. Huntress is a Fury. She took place of, I think it was Famine, the one who did get killed in previous issues in here, and one of the avatars is Alan Scott's ex-fiance who passed away real early in Earth 2 issue, and now he's being consumed or whatnot by the Huntress, but then he was spared because the Huntress threatens to save it. It'll give him back to him, but she's going to kill countless others. So it's crazy stuff going on over there. You got different stories going on with Dick Grayson and Barbara wound up getting killed, and him and Wildcat got to go find his son or whatnot. And we get to see Desaad in here going against some of the other heroes like Val and Red Tornado and and Superman and whatnot. So there's a lot of weird things going on in this issue. You get the World Army, the guy Sloan, who said he's blowing up himself or whatnot, and I was just like, for some reason I just don't find myself really interested in this. And the only thing I found interested in this particular issue was when we find out that from the previous issues, when they went to go save the human race and Superman wound up destroying one of the spaceships, they found that countless lives were destroyed. Well, this time we didn't want that. The World Army doesn't want that to happen. So what happens is Adam winds up sacrificing himself in the issue, and he winds up going deep, deep, deep beneath the ground, and he winds up creating this space large enough to make, I think it was like 10 large cities or something like that. And and in the end, he winds up dying. So he sacrifices himself to make the human race still live going into the future. I thought that was the only part that was worthwhile in the entire issue. Otherwise, for me, you could just leave this one. I just didn't like it whatsoever at all. It's just not my cup of tea, guys. I'm just reading it to have an idea, honestly, of what's going to happen in when it comes down to convergence when we get to that point. So again, I'm not buying it anymore. I'm reading it digitally, and if I got to give this one a rating, I got to give it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Good ending, though. All right. Next is number 3 on the list. Number 3 is New 52 Futures End issue number 35. Here on the cover, we get to see Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis, and Plastique wound up making out on the cover. it's not a huge make-out session that happens in the book. It's really one panel when she's getting rescued from crazy Batman, Joker, Brother's Eye. Yeah, that three things all in once right there. Um, this issue jumps around like Futures End usually does, but I find that the stories are much more interesting in this series. We get to see Madison in here, who is now the new Firestorm, do battle against Polaris in here, and it's good to see her get her advice from Jason and them learning how to work with each other. So I find that part, even though I wasn't a fan of Yamakaze or however you say his name. I still find their battle interesting and their story is more inviting than some of the other stories in here. The one story that I really don't care about is Lana Lang sitting there wanting to be the mother figure of 50 Sue. I'm just like, she's this crazy killer, and she feels like, Lana's like, oh, you're this 8-year-old girl at heart, don't kill people, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. I could take it or leave it. And that's the thing with Future's End. There's some really good stories in here, and then there's some bad stories in here. But then you may get a good story, and you may not see that story for another 5 or 6 issues because Future's End has developed so many plot lines. Now, are we done seeing Green Arrow in this series? We saw the whole Catamus Island get taken care of, and you wind up seeing him retire. But is he truly like done? You know what I'm saying? Is case closed? Is it done? So there's just certain things like that. Superman and Constantine. We haven't seen him for a few issues. So that's kind of the downfall in this. You get to see Frankenstein, who is dying, which he shouldn't be because he's like an undead type of character, but he's mixed with Hawkman's arm, so it's kind of conflicting with his undead spirit and a living spirit, and we don't know who's going to survive or what's going to happen to him. So Amethyst winds up taking Frankenstein and winds up trying to do some magic to resurrect him and bring him back to life. And now going back to the end of this issue, you wind up seeing the Joker slash Batman, or Manny faces, if you remember He-Man and the Master of the Universe, how their faces change, go after Plastique, and Terry McGinnis winds up trying to save her in the actual issue. And when he does save her, he sneaks in a kiss in there. A little sly dog you. So he winds up getting in a kiss, and at the end of the issue, Batman gets involved in the whole situation. And you got Joker, Brother Eye, Batman uh, holding a cannon right to the Bruce Wayne Batman's face, and that's kind of how the issue ends. Again, there's some entertaining stories in here that are worth reading. Again, it leads into Convergence. Eventually, Earth 2 and World's End are going to actually cross over together, so that's going to be crazy in itself. But this is something that you might like it or you might hate it. So I got to give it that middle grade, and I gotta give it a 3 out of 5 stars. There's been very few issues in Futures End that really have stood out, that got that high grade, and one of them was that Firestorm issue where it focuses around Firestorm. So, but after reading this one, I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5 stars. All right, next we're going to go on to number 2, and I read this digitally, and I wasn't going to read it, but since I wanted more books in the actual countdown this week, I read this, and this was actually a really good book, and this was Star Trek Planet of the Apes issue number 1. This is a crossover between IDW and Boom. I was like, okay, well, how are you going to do Planet of the Apes and Star Trek? How are you going to cross them over? And I feel that, Planet of the Apes is pretty popular these days based off of the recent movies. And I think they're great movies. So I wanted to see what this was like. But I feel like this kind of revolves more like the original Planet of the Apes, like the TV show that we know, or the older movies. And but I still wanted to read it and get my curiosity off of this book. It's written by Scott Tipton, and the art is done by Rachel Stock. I thought the artwork was pretty good in this book, and you get to see in the beginning of this book that you can obviously see that they're on Earth with one of the apes, and the apes has a machine gun or some type of gun that he's being handled to, and it's this mysterious character that you don't know, and it kind of leaves off from there. In the issue, you wind up seeing what was it, Sulu and Aurora, and they wind up going into Klingon territory to try to get this communications from them to find out what's going on, this top secret project, and they infiltrate the Klingon city, and they wind up getting it, and they disguise themselves as Klingons. And I like that mission that it kind of presented itself there. Kind of had some suspense into the actual issue. They wind up getting discovered, and they wind up running away, and you wind up seeing them. They wind up getting beamed up to the Enterprise, and it was really neat. Then you get to see Captain Kirk, and you wind up seeing who is it? Scotty, and you wind up seeing Spock, and you wind up seeing everybody in there, and you find out that it was this device that the Klingons had that made them go through time and space, so a different dimension, for say. So that was what they had. And so what happens is Captain Kirk and his crew wind up going to the coordinates of where these devices actually were, and they wind up coming against Klingons, and you see some epic battles that maybe you have once watched in a TV show, which I thought was pretty neat. And there was lots of discussion where they saw a Klingon ship go through this portal, and you get to see a lot of interaction with Captain Kirk and Spock, and deciding if they should go through this portal or not, and Kirk really being true to his character on talking with Spock on being his advisor if they really should go or not. So after a lengthy discussion in the comic, they wind up deciding to go, and they wind up coming across a Klingon talking with one of the Planet of the Apes guys, and that's basically how the issue winds up ending. Now, this was a good issue. I liked it for what it was. The thing is I thought there was a little bit too much setup here. I would have loved to see if there was a little bit more action with Sulu and Aurora actually going to the Klingon city or wherever it was that they were, and actually going through and getting that information longer. I would have seen them leaving the Enterprise, going through the stages of going to get that communications instead of already being in the middle of the mission, and then going back to the Enterprise and discovering what they found, and just give a little bit of tidbit of what they found. But they spent like almost 5 pages discussing, are we going to go there? Are we not going to go there? What kind of Earth is this? And what kind of this? And what kind of that? And that kind of dragged the issue down a little bit for me. I was a little bit like bored with it. It was like too much setup, because no matter what's going to happen, they're going to go through that portal and they're going to discover the apes. I mean, you knew that in this issue. So the issue is very predictable, but it was a fun issue to read. And if you're a Star Trek fan, you're going to really appreciate that, because these characters are staying true to who they are. The artwork was a little bit stiff, and I would have loved to see more of the apes, but you'll see that in coming issues. So if anything, I might read this more on a consistent basis. Through digital wise, but not on physical copy wise. So after reading this, I'm going to give this book a 3 3/4 stars. So all right. So next, what got number 1 on this week's list for Mike Spider Slayer? Well, it was S.H.I.E.L.D. number 1. That's right, fans. Probably a very predictable number 1 this week, and an easy shoe-in for for possible nominations for Comic of the Year going into next year, into the late 2015 year. So they get like a free pass. But this is a good way to introduce a series. I like how in this book they really use Agent Coulson, how he's just like the character on the TV. He's going to go back to his resources and find out and plan any contingencies that's going to happen in order to complete a mission. And I love the beginning of this issue where it focuses around the early days of Agent Coulson. I love that. I love seeing how infatuated he was with superheroes, how he wrote down and wanted to learn everything about the superheroes, And I thought it was a very interesting issue, and going back through his past with S.H.I.E.L.D., how he was a data entry person, and he wound up becoming a field agent, and how he got to the point that he was today. The thing that I didn't like as much maybe as some other people was the actual mission themselves. Because I'm not a huge Thor fan, and I wasn't as in awe as maybe some other people were about it. They basically had to wind up going to this leader, this world leader or whatnot, wind up recovering this sword that wound up giving this guy, crazy superpowers. He feels that he could take over the world now. He was unstoppable, but we find out that the magic was too powerful for him, and he winds up disintegrating. Really, the person whose sword it was this guy's right here. I forgot his name, but he was the protector of the bridge, the one that allows things go by into the bridge into the entryway of Asgard. So he's an Asgardian, and we find out that he winds up getting this black crystal impaled into his chest, and it wound up possessing him. So Agent Coulson had to come up with a way to get that crystal out of his body. The artwork in the book was fantastic. I really enjoyed the artwork, and Mark Waid did a nice job of writing the characters. Again, my whole thing is I'm not a fan of Asgard and Asgardians and Thor or whatnot, and so that's why for me it brought the book down a little bit. But it was a very solid book, and I love seeing the ending of it. Again, how Coulson was very resourceful and getting the Vision to be inside of his body, getting out that crystal, and wind up having the Asgardian going back to the way he was. The great thing about this issue was that at the end of it too, we wind up seeing that for the first time ever, Agent Coulson is lost for words. He has no idea where that black crystal is or where it came from. So, and he usually knows everything. What I would have loved to see with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., or I'm sorry, S.H.I.E.L.D. issue number 1, is I would have loved to see more character development. Hopefully they do that in future issues, because you got to see a little bit of the background of Agent Coulson. But I would have loved to see more of May as well, and maybe more of Fitz and more of Simmons in this issue. I would have loved to see more of that character development there. Maybe for issue 1, it was really focused around Coulson, and it was a Coulson-centric type of book, and it was his story. Maybe they'll focus on May in the next issue and have her go through a mission. So maybe they'll do it like that. I'm not sure of the timeline, if this takes place before the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, or if it's following the same timeline, but there's no Skylar here, and I'm interested to see if she does make that appearance here. So if you guys have any word to that or have any idea, let me know. But this was a solid book. I liked it. I really enjoyed it. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. Again, another thing that brought it down for me was the price point. We don't need $4.99 first issue price points. I think it's ridiculous. Comics are expensive enough. People don't buy just one comic, but the industry is making it harder and harder for people to just do that. There's going to be times where people are going to go to the comic book store and just buy 1 or 2 comics, and that's it, because they're getting so pricey. $5 for one comic is ridiculous. Whereas back in the day when it was $2 an issue, you could get 5 comics for that price. I would say quality over quantity, and if you make a good quality book and you charge right for it, you're going to sell it no matter what the price point is. So, guys, there you have it. There is the countdown for this week. Very short. Still managed to spend 19 minutes on it. But, guys, hopefully you enjoyed it. And fans, as always, thank you for watching Comic Book Corner 2.0. Hope you guys enjoyed this first countdown of the year and countdown episode number 89. And, fans, I'll see you real soon. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.